Good evening and thank you for joining us right here in Voice of the People 90.3 FM. My name is Esther Wachuku. This is the world news and here are the top stories. Akpabio denies sexual harassment allegations. Senate refers petition to Ethics Committee. Senate throws out Natasha's petition of sexual harassment against Akpabio. Nigeria emerges sixth most affected country by terrorism in the world. President Tinubu holds second FEC meeting in 1 week. Fubara officially recognizes Wike's ally as Rivers Assembly Speaker. Details now. Thank you for staying with us. Senate President Akpabio has strongly denied allegations of sexual harassment leveled against him by Senator Natasha Akpabio, insisting that he has always upheld respect for women. Speaking at the resumption of plenary today after a week-long recess, Akpabio dismissed the claims, describing them as unfounded and baseless. He said, and I quote, "At no time did I ever harass any woman. I was raised very well by my late single mother, and I have always upheld respect for women. I was even awarded the most gender-friendly governor in Nigeria." End quote. Akpabio further revealed that since February 25, he had been inundated with calls regarding the allegation, adding that he was aware of the heated discussions on social media. He, however, urged Nigerians, the media, and social media users to avoid jumping to conclusions and instead allow due process to take its course in court. Shortly after Akpabio's remarks, Senator Akpabio formally raised her petition under Order 40 of the Senate Rules, accusing Akpabio of sexual harassment and abuse of office. She then requested permission to step forward and officially lay the petition before the chamber. In response, the Senate referred the matter to the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Code of Conduct, directing the panel to review the petition and submit its findings as soon as possible. Let's take a listen today to Natasha Akpabio presenting the sexual allegation petition against the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio.
May only be presented to the Senate by a senator who shall affix his or her name at the beginning thereof. The petition is in my name against the President of the Nigerian Senate, His Excellency Senator Godswill Akpabio, for sexual harassment, abuse of office, and malicious obstruction of my legislative functions. You may recall, sir, that on Friday in Arise TV, I did make some statements. And I have decided to narrow these statements in a formal petition against the President of this Senate. So if it may please you, I would humbly step forward and lay this petition. Thank you.
You may proceed.
You just listened to Natasha Akpabio there, actually physically voicing out her petition to the Senate President. Meanwhile, supporters of Senator Natasha Akpabio have taken to the streets of Abuja, demanding the resignation of Senate President Godswill Akpabio. The demonstration, which began early this morning, saw a large crowd of protesters gathered at the National Assembly gate, calling for justice and an end to what they described as political intimidation. The protesters, many carrying placards with bold inscriptions, arrived at the National Assembly complex as early as 8 a.m., just as the Senate is expected to resume plenary. However, security personnel stationed at the complex denied them access, preventing them from taking their protest inside the premises. Security operatives reportedly fired tear gas canisters into the crowd, forcing them to relocate to the Unity Fountain, a popular venue of public protest in Abuja. The protest comes amid a heated political dispute between Akpabio Uduaghan, who represents Kogi Central, and Senate President Akpabio. The clash actually began on February 20 over sitting arrangements in the Senate chamber, an incident that quickly escalated. Following the altercation, Akpabio Uduaghan was summoned by the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions for disciplinary actions. Meanwhile, the Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct and Public Petitions has declared the petition filed by the senator representing Kogi Central Senatorial District, Natasha Uduaghan, against Senate President Akpabio, in which she alleged sexual harassment as dead on arrival. Now, the chairman of the committee, Senator Neda Imasuen, while speaking at a PERB session today, cited a breach of Order 40 of the Senate Standing Rules. According to Imasuen, Natasha signed the petition herself instead of being endorsed by another individual, rendering it procedurally invalid. Senator Emerson noted that the issues Natasha raised in the petition were already in court, making them sub judice. Meanwhile, Emerson, in an interview very recently, also emphasized that interactions in the Senate are often light-hearted and any perception of familiarity seen as harassment is misplaced. Addressing concerns about perceived bias in recognizing senators during proceedings, Emerson noted it's a matter of privilege in the Senate, stressing that all lawmakers occasionally feel overlooked, which has happened to him many times. The senator insisted that Akpabio does not discriminate against the female gender. He said, "We have 4 female senators in this assembly, and I am close to 3 of them. It's a matter of privilege, and I don't think it is directed at any individual because of sex. If I were to give you my own experience, there are many occasions that I also complain. There are times I raise up my hands and the Senate President does not recognize me because he recognizes someone behind me, and I am wondering why. But he cannot entertain every senator at a sitting who has an opinion, and so it takes his prerogative, and I don't believe that he does so because of the sex of the senator." End quote. Now, in a very recent development, the governor of Rivers State, Governor Sim Fubara, has formally recognized the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, loyal to former Governor and FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, following a recent Supreme Court ruling. In a letter to the Assembly signed by Secretary to the State Government, Dr. Tammy Wenike Danagugu, the government acknowledged awareness of the Assembly's resolutions, but noted that it had not yet received formal communication from lawmakers. The statement clarified that as of the close of business on March 4, neither the Governor's Office, the Deputy Governor's Office, nor the Office of the Accountant General had received the letter, despite its circulation on social media. The letter also referenced Governor Sim Fubara's March 2 state broadcast, in which he reiterated his commitment to respecting the Supreme Court ruling, regardless of personal opinions. He assured that the government would uphold the rule of law and act in the state's best interest. Danagugu further stated that the government's legal team is still awaiting a certified true copy of the Supreme Court judgment and assured the public that Governor Fubara would implement the decision once the official documents are received. You're currently listening to the World News at 6 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. We will take a very short break. When we return, we'll head into more news, and obviously we'll take a news analysis segment where we'll be joined via the telephone by Barrister Fred Nzako, who is a political, national and social affairs commentator. To kindly stay with us. Thank you for staying with us and welcome back to the World News. Meanwhile, Nigeria has been named the 6th most affected country in the world by terrorism for the year 2024. This was contained in a ranking released today by the Global Terrorism Index. The Global Terrorism Index report by the Institute for Economics and Peace ranks 163 countries on the terrorism impact. On the terrorism impact scale, using indicators such as the number of terrorist incidents, fatalities, injuries and hostages. Well, VAB News understands that Nigeria was named among Sahelian countries that accounted for 51% of global terrorism deaths last year, as GTI found that terrorism in the Sahel has increased significantly, with death rising nearly tenfold since 2009. According to the index, Nigeria recorded 565 deaths from terrorist activities in 2024. The report noted that while the number of attacks decreased by 37%, part of a wider positive trend noted in sub-Saharan Africa, fatalities still rose by 6%. The report identified Boko Haram and the Islamic State of West Africa Province as the major terrorist groups responsible for carrying out terrorism in the country, with Yobe identified as a hotspot for violence. The report cited weak governance, ethnic tensions, and ecological degradation as factors that have created a conducive environment for terrorism to persist. Barrister Fred Nzako, good evening and thank you for joining us on the World News at 6 today. How are you?
I'm very fine.
Good evening, sir. Barrister Fred, let's go straight to the conversation. Natasha Akpabio today presented her petition of sexual harassment allegation against the Senate president. This was physical, face-to-face. She called him out, she signed a petition, and she presented it. Now, the first Senate president denied that he has never been involved in any sexual allegation. He said that he has been aware of this case circulating on social media, as you can recall, but that his mother trained him well, and that in fact he was given an award for the most responsible and well-behaved male gender. Now, apparently, with that particular situation today, the Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct and Public Petitions has declared the petition filed by Senator Akpabio against Senate President, in which she alleged sexual harassment, as dead on arrival. In fact, the chairman of the committee, Senator Neda, while speaking today, cited that a breach of Order 40 of the Senate Standing Rules. In fact, he also disclosed that senators make light conversations amongst themselves, and it's not something to take serious. Are we saying that with this public display, with all she has said, with the protests that took place today in Abuja, the pro-Natasha and those who are against Natasha, that is those who are supporting Senator Akpabio, that this has been gone, this will be taken under the carpet, swept under the carpet, nothing will be done about it, nobody will probe it?
That Senator Godswill Akpabio, the president, sexually harassing her. And she said it very publicly. And when many well-meaning Nigerians said that the Senate should investigate the allegation, the spokesman of the Senate said that they could not investigate it because there was no official petition for the Senate.
Yes.
Now, Natasha Akpabio has written an official petition to the Senate. And now the Senate is avoiding the petition, claiming that it was dead on arrival because the matter was in court. I am aware that the matter in court was initiated by a medicine interloper, Mrs. Akpabio, who was not in any way involved in the sexual harassment issue. So I do not see how she will go to court claiming to be defending her husband. It is very worrisome that we are not building a country where integrity will be the order of the day. Many Nigerians have asked the Senate president to step aside so that there is an investigation. And even if he does not step aside, it is accepted that the Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges must investigate this matter and ensure that the women in the Senate are defended, are protected from sexual harassment. Recall that Senator Akpabio had once told Senator Natasha that the Senate chambers was not a nightclub. It was a very terrible insinuation, which he could not explain how on earth he would refer to a senator with such a inanity as a nightclub. Secondly, you will recall that it came to the Akpabio and say that because Senator Natasha was brought in by the court, that he did not go through the registration at the National Assembly, and that was the reason why she could not understand the rules of the Senate. Now, the time Senator Akpabio was alleged to have sexually assaulted Joyce, and Madam Joyce, the then managing director of NBC, who said that when Akpabio assaulted her, and she gave Akpabio a victim slap. Akpabio up to today has not denied that allegation. Now Natasha has also said again that Akpabio sexually harassed her in his own house. The fact that Natasha did not want her to be made, many people came to the conclusion that Akpabio wanted Natasha to be within an eye shot so that he could literally, in a manner of speaking, keep undressing her with his skin and with his eyes. It, of course, is an embarrassing harassment. I think that the Senate is not doing Akpabio any good. I think also that the Senate is not doing Nigeria any good. That Senator Akpabio does not handle this matter as a bully, because any attempt to bully Senator Natasha will have a reverberating effect. The current assembly has only 4 senators. It is a far cry from expectation from the whole of the world. The last assembly had 9 female senators. Today, we have only 4 female senators. And we expect that they will be treated as think they will undermine the few females in the chamber and bully them the way Amana they have bullied by throwing away her petition. I think Nigerians will not take that.
But Barrister Fred, today. Okay, so Barrister Fred writes, I'm so sorry because
for the women,
okay,
should not tolerate any bullying of any female senator or any woman for that matter, any part of the country.
Barrister Fred, is quite unfortunate, and it seems it's a shame actually on the personality or the disposition of the Senate president, rather the Senate and the Senate itself, on how this matter has been handled. Barrister Fred, sexual allegation is a huge thing. You would have expected that the ethics committee would investigate this. Ask the Senate president to stand aside, all right, while the investigation takes place. If Natasha Akpoti lied, if what she said is not true or is misplaced, as Senate President Akpabio actually defended himself on, then there'll be punitive measures meted out on her. But for her to have brazenly written that petition, because they claimed that no one has written a petition, the ethics committee claimed so, and then they now discountenanced it, swept it off and said it's disregarded. But Natasha Akpoti herself is undergoing through a measure, an investigative measure with the Senate Ethics Committee. Would you call that a double standard? So the sexual allegation on the president is swiped off and it's considered irresponsive. They did not respond to it. But Senator Natasha is going through the Ethics Committee and they're investigating her. What is the meaning of this?
The old saying that the guilty are free, and that clear conscience fears no persecution. I do not understand or see why the president of the Senate may be afraid to face the ethics and privileges committee. Don't forget that every senator is representing to have a senatorial zone. So the Senate president is only a first among equals. It does not mean that other senators are inferior or subservient to the Senate president. They elected him, they can impeach him. They made him to become their leader. They can also bring him down on account of his undoings. So I expect that the Senate as a body cannot use this matter under the government, irrespective of whether the Senate president is involved or not. Because it's just the same way any other senator who is involved in such an allegation it won't be swept under the government. It depends the Senate to investigate this matter, because the more they keep it under the government, the more the cockroaches in their football will be coming out. And I'm sure of that, because Natasha said she has credible evidence. She is possibly respecting the Humble Chamber and not throwing the evidence into the public. So it pays them to go into their opportunity, sit in their own inner room, ask critical questions apologize to who they deserve to be apologized to. If the same person should apologize to Natasha, then they will tell him quietly to apologize to her. Even if the apology is not made public, the lady has been healing. Why about they are doing again about it in a bullying and untwisting approach? It will not start the Senate, rather it will bring them to public opprobrium and the public ridicule. And I can tell you that the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will not be the same if they don't handle this matter well. Women are gearing for action all around the country, including the Ministry of Women Affairs, all women groups, National Society of National Council of Women Society, every women group in the country is gearing for action. And they said they will not take it. So how do you think this is not already happened? I think it is because the way and manner they look at issues of integrity in Nigeria, forgetting that when we talk about international best practices, they must behave the way other people behave in other parts of the world. I do not see how this should be so under the carpet. And if anybody has the ear of Senator Gospel Akpabio, it will be advised to tread with caution, clear his name, avoid his anti-meeting tactics. The other day, they hired some women to go and protest on his behalf. Hungry women that I don't know where they brought them.
Even today too. Even today too in Abuja, there were women supporting him as well.
So what does that tell you? It tells you that remaining with the old order in the current dispensation will not pay any precedent for the Senate. And they must know this and act wisely.
Barrister Fred Nzako, it's quite unfortunate. The situation is quite unfortunate because there are concerns about perceived bias in recognizing senators during proceedings. And for Imasowen, he's noting that it's a matter of privilege in the Senate, but it's not all the time the Senate president will be able to grant every other person attention. So in other words, and Natasha is acting out because she wasn't given attention. That is how inadequate the maid has claimed to be. In fact, it's quite unfortunate because the case of a past incident with Joy Nunez, who was the director of the NDDC when Akpabio was the minister of the NDDC, came up. We've had an antecedent of an allegation against his person. What is the Senate afraid of? What does the Senate recognize? Are there any rules applied in the Senate? This is a very gruesome situation. And others are saying that there's a deliberate attempt to ensure that Akpabio is impeached because of the region or where he comes from. Do you think that's what it is?
I want to even advocate that Abuja should be sanitized in a manner that the legislators and government officials who make mincemeat of women in Abuja to also be given some sanctions. In advanced culture and in countries where people respect their laws, their integrity, and their decorum, legislators and government officials will not boldly come out to be hobnobbing with girl girls. We see that openly in the Federal Capital Territory. If anybody says he doesn't see that, the person is even a denier. And because they deal recklessly with women of easy vector, some men shamelessly do not know the difference between a woman of integrity and of achievement and another woman of easy virtue. All women are not the same. I say this with all sense of responsibility. And those of them who stand tall must be respected and given their fair share of honor and respect. We must tell the Senate that Senator Natasha is one woman that must not be trapped. It's one woman that the other time she showcased her actions in her constituency and it wowed everybody. In fact, some people started blowing the ears of their senators and they're asking them, look at the senator that just joined. The first time in the Senate. Look at the numerous that difference is bringing to our constituency. And many of you men have not been able to do anything. If the men are pulling her down on account of the jealousy that she's achieving tremendously well in our constituency, then the people of our constituency will rise up and defend. All well-meaning men of honor to rise up in our defense. All the women of strong virtue, which the Christian women will rise up in our defense. And I can tell you that there will be no hiding place for both Senator Akpabio and the Senate at large. And then again, I want the Senate to treat this matter with the respect that they deserve, with the situation that they deserve. Trying to say that he was dead on arrival is rubbing insult to the majority of Nigerian women who are strongly behind Natasha. An assembly of 109 senators and only 4 women. That tells you that those women are not ordinary women. They are not no paper tiger. They are strong women that must be honored and respected. And I demand total respect for the person.
All right, Barrister Fred Zako, thank you so much, all right, for giving us your insight on this issue. We have a program coming up very soon. I would have loved to continue with you. Thank you so much, Barrister Fred Zako.
Many thanks.
Thank you very much, sir. That's a wrap on the world news at 6. My name is Esther Mwachuku. Good evening and thank you for listening.